Howard Stern Show.
When you're writing for Saturday Night Live, at that point in your career, if an actor or a comedian fucks up your material, is that another way that you go into a depression? You write a great sketch, they assign it to, I don't know, some new guest host or something, and they screw it up, or does that make you insane because you don't get to perform it?
You know, I would say sometimes that would be frustrating, but that would be the exception. I think the great thing about Saturday Night Live and most of the gigs I've worked on is that there are no excuses, meaning if you write something great, chances are it's going to get its day in court. And if it doesn't, it probably means, it just wasn't meant to be.
So you get incredibly close to Lorne Michaels when you're working there, because
actually, well, I don't think it's funny. You say, I don't know that I got that close to him, but I think I remember I think I worked there for a year. And you'd see him around. He'd walk around, but he's very intimidating. And when he would see you in the hallway, he would do the same thing and be like, "Still with the show? You're still with the show? You're hanging on by a thread." And then I remembered one night he wandered back to I had an office that I shared with a couple of guys, and I had a desk next to Bob Odenkirk, and suddenly. But no one's around, and suddenly it's like 3 a.m, and Lorne appears at my door, and he just starts talking to me about, the week he just had. We just had a week off, and what he did with his week, and what he's likes to read.
Wow!
And I thought, this is really cool that we're talking. I always, obviously, really admire him. Think he's a genius.
Absolutely.
But and then I think it was eventually I got. Talking about getting depressed, I got pretty depressed. I got depressed about my life, and I decided to leave Saturday Night Live. And Lorne could not have been nicer. He just kept saying, "Stay, stay, stay." And then he got to the point where he was practically saying, "I'll pay you. You don't even have to come in. You can just call us up occasionally with ideas." And I said, "Lorne, I think for my health, I just have to go." But
what was that about, though? What was was that your depression setting?
I think
in?
I had gone through a big breakup at the time, and
was that Lisa Kudrow?
No. This was a woman that I was going out with, and it had not worked out, and I was depressed, and I think I was also burnt out. Saturday Night Live is very
draining,
very intense. There's a lot of not sleeping, and there's a lot of it's very exhilarating. But the thing about Saturday Night Live, and I think is one of the geniuses of Lorne Michaels, is that they throw you in the deep end of the pool right away, and so you show up, and you're a complete newbie, and you're scared, and they say, "Steve Martin's in that room. Go pitch to him." And you're a guy that doesn't think you have the right, to talk to even look at Steve Martin, let alone go into a room and start pitching.
Right.
So 3 years of that, and I get very intense about my work, and I think 3 years of that, and I was just done, and my personal life wasn't so great, so I wanted to get out of town.
Steve Martin, when you have to, I can't imagine pitching Steve Martin, because that guy's such a fucking genius.
He is, he's sort of the gold standard, there's guys like that. Martin
I'd be
Short.
really intimidated going into a room and saying, "Here's what I think's funny, and you should do this."
And also, people think they're going to go pitch to the Steve Martin with the arrow through his head. Right. With the banjo, he is a very
serious
guy who has so much intelligence that when he's looking at you and you're pitching a comedy idea, you can feel like a complete ass if you don't nail it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine that kind of pressure. I get why you'd leave. And so you leave that job. Probably all your friends tell you you're out of your fucking mind.
People did, yeah.
Because you're getting paid.
Because I quit the show, and I had no other job. And I remembered for 2 weeks, I wandered around New York. I bought a book of poetry. This is the lamest thing. I bought a book of Seamus Heaney poetry, and I was wandering around, sitting on benches on the Upper West Side, reading poetry and drinking coffee, and you're like, what an asshole.
The Howard Stern Show.